Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you listen, wherever you listen. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. And we got the duel here. Bet Online brought to you by Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast, brought to you by Bet Online. Go to betonline.ag, put in promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Use no more promo code. That's where the game starts. Yeah. Bet Online. Also, if you're in fantasy, you want to take fantasy to the ultimate, go to underdogfantasy.com or go to the Underdog Fantasy app. Put in promo code USCLAFB for $100, and you get up to a $100 match. That's Underdog Fantasy. Ryan, we got a good one today. We're a duel today. And we're a duel today because
for good reason.
Our good reason. Our man Madman has been on baby watch, and the baby's finally here. Mom and baby's finally happy. Congratulations, Madman. Wish you nothing but the best in fatherhood, and can't wait to get you back. And it's a great one. We got go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say best club in the world. He just joined, Dad Club. So congrats, Madman, on being a girl dad.
We're definitely going to see him with a beard. I guarantee you we're going to see him with a beard now. He's going to learn. He's going to be with a beard so quick. We got a great host. We got Ryan Harings from, say it for me, Ryan.
Locked On Badgers.
Locked On Badgers. We got him, a great Ryan Harings host today. We're going to talk a little Badger football for you guys, preview the game, and get ready for Saturday. And hopefully we get a good win, and we'll be here for Victory Saturday. They play at 12:30 on CBS again.
Another noon game.
You got a Victory Saturday. So we'll see you guys for Victory Saturday. We'll get on to this Ryan Harings. You guys let us know. You guys know how to go. Live free. Fight on.
All right. What's up, USC fans, Badger fans? As mentioned to all of you in the intro, very special crossover podcast today. Myself and Coach Rowe on the USC side. Ryan Harings of Locked On Badgers for the Wisconsin side. So pumped to get into it. First, I guess, official Big Ten clash at the Coli out here in Los Angeles. So Wisconsin, you guys get to break it in. You get to christen the Coliseum with a true Big Ten game. But first and foremost, Ryan, how you doing, man? Thanks so much for taking the time doing this crossover with us.
Dude, I am so excited. I'm stoked. Humbled to be here. Thank you guys both for the time. I think it's going to be great. And to your point, I can't make it this weekend. I would love to. I've talked a bunch about USC, what it does to the pedigree of the conference, and to have the opportunity to go out there and kind of be the first Big Ten home game for that program of that stature with those fans. Heck yeah. I think it's awesome.
Hey, Ryan, don't worry. I'm not going either. I wasn't granted access, so don't worry about it.
Here we go.
All good. We'll watch at home.
I'll be there. You're there. You got the background, of course. So, you know, you got the background.
I'm always there. There we go.
I gotta ask first, Ryan, jump into this. Like, I think this.
Hold on, Ryan. By the way, I'm doing fine too. Just in case you was curious.
Okay. Well, we talked before, so I figured so.
I'm doing fine too.
I figured so. Well, glad you're here with me. Aside from the game, I feel like this is probably the most important question. We talk, Coach and I, all the time about tradition and like what SC needs to do to make the game day experience better. Is there a better game day tradition than jump around?
I mean, listen, it's up there with Inner Sandman. It's up there with some of what you're going to get at LSU, the cocktail party, down in the SEC area, Rocky Top in Tennessee. It's in that mix at that top. I'll say this, like all traditions, it's a lot better when you're good. Like if you go to Madison and it's a good game in the third quarter, there's not many more special places in Camp Randall if you're a college football aficionado. But Wisconsin's got to get back to that point, right? The traditions are enhanced when you're good. So, yeah, I think USC fans, when they come out, whenever that trip happens, is that next year? I don't even know future schedules, but whenever that trip happens, USC fans are going to love it. Wisconsin fans are good natured. They like beer. They like cheese. They like football. So, we can't wait to host y'all for sure.
You know what, Ryan? This is kind of weird because when you're starting to, you saw it a lot with Michigan, and I don't know how it is with other schools. I don't care, and I hope you guys are just terrible to Oregon when they come and play you guys, like, because Oregon is the Dallas Cowboys of college football. But a lot of the Big Ten schools are really the schools, not the fans, but like the schools are really welcoming, like to SC. Like it's like welcome in, like the respect that the players showed the SC players at the end of the game was like crazy. Like, like you guys are appreciated here. Like it's really, really weird for the most part, but like, do you know why that is? You're a Big Ten guy. Like, why are a lot of these guys are like, oh, SC's coming? Like, they're more welcoming more than like welcome to our conference? Do you know, or is it just a Midwest nice thing?
But no, well, so Midwest Nice is a thing for starters. That is a very, very real thing.
Yes.
Very real thing. I'll say this. I think the Big Ten has always been built around more than just football. Like, it's been built around this, we're kind of together, rising tide lifts all boats type of thing. I mean, it was the first conference that really banded together and said, we're going to do our own TV deal and we're going to do this. And it's always had kind of that internal connection. So I think there is an element of, you're part of this now. Like, let's do this together. Now, I'll say there's going to be fans, and yeah, like, fans are going to be frictionless, right? Like, it's not going to be as smooth with fans, because there's also an element of Big Ten people want to show SC, like, this isn't a walkover. Like, we've heard how SC and Oregon are going to come in and kind of immediately establish a roost at the top part of the tree. So there's going to be fans that be like, hey, you got to earn it. And that's what a lot of fans were watching last week, USC, Michigan. And I think there were some Big Ten fans cheering for Michigan, quite frankly. I would never cheer for Michigan, by the way, because you don't want somebody to come into your house day one and like get the seat at the top of the table, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think the fan bases will be less welcoming. And I was curious to ask both of you, how has it been? Like, I'm sure I'm not the first person to ask you this, but you've kind of settled into a wing of the Big Ten hotel. Like, has it been roomy and nice, or has it been kind of like weird and full of odd people? Like, how has it been settling into the Big Ten?
So I'll go first real quick, Ryan. Yeah. So like I said, it's kind of weird, because it's like the people in the hotel, and to use your description, the people in the hotel are like, yeah, make yourself at home. Welcome. Like, we appreciate you guys being here. Like, it's so much fun having you here. We talked to a guy last week from Maize and Blue. He was great. Like, a lot of people we talked to who are really like football people are like, we're so happy to have you here. But then once we leave the hotel and walk the street of Big Ten town, they're like, ugh, SC's here. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's so weird, because like the football aficionados and the people in Depton is like, we're so glad you guys are here. This is so great for football. And last week proved how great it is for football. Mm-hmm. But the I guess the rest of the town is like, we really don't want you guys here. Why are you here?
Yeah, well, I think you can split it up like in everything in life, Twitter versus real life, right? I mean, I think everyone I've talked to in real life, and I knew people at the Michigan game. I know we keep referring to that, but that was just the first Big Ten actual matchup. Loved the experience. Said it was awesome. Fans were great, welcoming. Like we said, I was at Big Ten Media Day, and obviously that's media, but still like in Big Ten country, and I think it was all good. Then on Twitter, it's a whole different world, and it's, but that's with anything. It doesn't matter if it's Big Ten or you're talking food or something, or cooking, I'm sure. So I guess to answer your question, I think overall in like actual game day experience, it's been good so far. I know there will be a lot of Wisconsin fans at this game in LA, sold out game. That's, I think, what we, Coach and I, and all of us here at the network have talked about, being so excited about being in the Big Ten, is the Big Ten travels so well. Always have, and obviously being in LA, who doesn't want to come to LA in September, October, November for a game? And so I'm sure LA is going to have a lot of Badger fans, which will be fun. So I can really answer you better maybe after the game of what that experience was like.
I love it. A guy really quickly that comes on my show a lot, Rajiv, he's going to be out there, like, and he's stoked for it. So yeah, like I said, USC is as a seat at the very top table of college football. The pedigree, the history, the what it is, it's college football. And I concur with everything Coach Rowe was saying. Like, from that football standpoint, welcome to the Big Ten, because you make the conference better. And that's not just me blowing smoke, because we're talking here. I said that when they joined. Like, USC raises the profile, and it's a big addition, 100%. Now, we're going to whoop y'all's butt this weekend, but like, that's no. But like, it's a huge addition. So I think most football fans recognize how important the USC brand is and what it does for the pedigree of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The crazy part was, like, and I was texting Ryan and Jamal. He's also on our show, but he's away right now. But I was like, just hear me out. Oh no, I tweeted it, Ryan. I tweeted it on the LAFB. I was like, just hear me out. And compared to last week, I was like, we could be on the midst of something here. Since we no longer have Cal and Stanford as a rival, can Michigan make their way in as being one of USC's rivals? Like just it doesn't hurt to play with that, you know what I mean? Just because they're in conference and they have the protected games. Maybe we get to 2 protected games, and this could be one of the protected games. Like, I could definitely see that happen. I'm going to get killed by the Ohio State fans, but I prefer a Michigan rivalry over the Ohio State rivalry.
I'd agree with that, by the way.
All right.
I'd agree with that, by the way. Yeah, 100%.
Let's go. Let's look at these 2 coaches real quick. We're talking off air. Lincoln Riley, Luke Fickell. I'm a big Luke Fickell guy. I thought what he built at Cincinnati was great. I'll be honest, this was obviously pre-Lincoln Riley, back when Clay Helton was the coach. There were murmurs of Luke Fickell, and I wanted Luke Fickell for the SC job. I just saw what he built at Cincinnati, what SC was going through during the Clay Helton era, and I thought he was a guy that could really build a program. Now, year 2 in Wisconsin, and then you can ask vice versa us about Lincoln Riley, but just in your opinion, what's kind of the pulse of Luke Fickell with the fan base? But then from maybe a media podcasting perspective, what's your kind of pulse, how he's established himself? And obviously, we'll get to quarterback and stuff, problems with injuries and whatnot. But how do you just think he's managing the program so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. Listen, when Fickell came on board, Badger fans were as excited as you get free tickets to a cheese festival. That's about as excited as they were. It was we made a home run hire. Like, Fickell was the guy we wanted. He has a track record. He's a Midwest guy. He was a former wrestler. He played defensive line. He has toughness, like what he did at Cincinnati. And then he went out right away and he made splash hires at a coordinator spot. He brought Phil Longo in, who was North Carolina's offensive coordinator. We're going to install this new offense. He has a history of producing NFL quarterbacks. And it felt like, this is great. Like, what's going to go wrong? We're still going to have this defense. We're going to be able to run the ball. We're going to be able to pass the ball. And none of it's just clicked. It's felt inconsistent. Wisconsin hasn't been able to generate an identity on offense. Badger fans are getting pretty frustrated because, truthfully, you moved away from Paul Chryst, who at the end of the Paul Chryst era had gotten a little stale, but people don't know this. Paul Chryst won nearly 70% of his games as a head coach. You don't get fired very often winning that at that clip. And it hasn't gotten a lot better since Luke Fickell came on board. So Badger fans are getting a little frustrated, but ultimately it's 16 games in. And that's kind of the point I've made is you can't cycle through coaches so quickly where 16 games in, you're already like, all right, let's hit the reset button again. Because then you're constantly cycling cultures. You're constantly cycling the roster. And it's what Nebraska did for a while, right? They just kept hiring the wrong coach and giving up too quickly. I don't know. Maybe not giving up too quickly. I think they maybe held on to a couple of those guys a little too long. But my point is, you can't cycle coaches. So I'm not ready to move on for sure. I think some Badger fans, though, are starting to get to that point. And I'm curious from your guys' perspective. Like, I think we talked off air. You both like Luke Fickell. Like, how long as a fan base do you give a new coach if you're not seeing immediate results, especially in the portal area where you can bring in players quicker?
So
go ahead, Coach.
So I say never give up on Luke Fickell unless it gets to the point, right? Most contracts are 4 years. Luke Fickell is an established coach in this industry. Luke Fickell has been able to go to places and make an instant splash because of the level that he's been at, and he's been coaching above the level that he's been at, if that makes sense. Cincinnati was above that level. Right now he's in a Power 5 conference, in a very, very good conference, probably the best conference in NCAA football as of right now. Like, we're on every channel, ESPN, Fox, CBS. Like, we are the conference of NCAA football right now. Giving up on him now makes absolutely no sense. And like I told you, like, Luke Fickell is going to be like Novocaine. Just give us some time and it'll come in, right? And that's one of the best lines we ever heard in any movie. Like, just give us some time and it'll work. He has a lot of things up against him, right? So this is the thing he has up against him. I don't know the NIL situation, but I doubt the money matches Ohio State and Michigan, right? Like, realistically, right? At the end of the day, it's Camp Randall. It's Madison, Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like, you have to bring in players that are special people for a special situation that's going to be committed to building something and not ready to bounce after 1 year. Luke Fickell's at Wisconsin, where Wisconsin is I'm not taking anything from their history or anything like that, but they're a true culture program where it's a bunch of 4-year guys that are going to be good every 3 to 4 years. You're going to go through a low, and then 3 to 2 years later, you're going to be good again. That's what Wisconsin is, and Luke Fickell's the perfect guy for that. So I say give him his whole contract. Next year, they're going to be so much better. They're going to give him an extension. 2 years from then, they're not going to be as good as they were 2 years ago. They're going to be ready to fire him again. And then that 2 years later, he's going to be good again. That's what he builds there, because he has to build 4-year guys who want to stay there. I say give him the opportunity. I'm a big Luke Fickell guy. I'm a defensive guy. I love everything Luke Fickell does. Just let him do what he does. Let him do what he does and let him just make that magic happen. Just be patient. Go ahead, Ryan. Ryan.
I agree. I really like Luke Fickell. I mean, I think he was 4-8 or something his first year at Cincinnati, and then won 11 games his second year. With the program like that, and what obviously better than me, but finished 7-5 I think last year. And I think this year, I think that losing to Alabama maybe the way they did, but you lose your starting quarterback like in the first quarter or whatever it was. I mean that changes everything. So I think this year. And you, I'm sure, have spoken a lot about it, and I want to hear your actual thoughts on him too, on whether you think he's building the right way. I know you kind of alluded to it, but I mean, I think there's we talk about this all the time which we'll get to Lincoln Riley. It's like so much of college football is judged by wins and losses, as it should be, especially with how much these coaches are making. But there's also a right way to get to those wins, and if you can see true growth and building, and your 2025 class is like 27th or something like that right now, which is, I think, fairly solid. As long as you finish in that top 25, then that's a pretty good recruiting class. So he's recruiting well. So I mean, there's just so many factors now with NIL. It's crazy, but I love Luke Fickell. Like I said, I wanted him for the SC job 5 years ago. So we'll see.
Let me ask this question real quick about. So let's be realistic about Wisconsin. What are the expectations for Wisconsin? Right? Is it to win a national championship?
I would say, and that's a great question because that's very fair. The expectations at Wisconsin are pretty high because Wisconsin has been to a bowl game 22 straight years, right? Wisconsin there's pedigree here. Now, Wisconsin is always right below that blue blood tier, but they've been solidly there. So expectations are you're competing for playoff spots, especially with the 12-teamer, right? Not as much with the 4, but you're not getting there every year, but every couple of years you are competing for that. And you're never having a losing season. Like that's kind of the expectation at Wisconsin. And for 22 years, they've done it. Wisconsin was just on the outside a couple times of a 4-team playoff in modern football. So if you're going to be Luke Fickell, you're going to come in, you're going to make more money than the previous coach. I think the expectation is that you better be fighting for playoff spots.
All right. So if you get a playoff spot, or even if you're on the outside of the playoff spot, you get a decent bowl game, which it's hard with today's atmosphere. I think the goal should be, because realistically, I don't even think we'll have a playoff in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years max. I think the goal should be get invited to that mega conference that's going to happen when this thing all blows up. And are you in position to be invited to that mega conference? Like, don't quit on a guy and your expectations aren't national championship or bust. If it's to have a winning season and make a playoff, let them establish that and get to that. Have realistic expectations because, like you said, you're going to create a revolving door having coach in, and you waste a lot of money, and it's hard to recover from that. And that's what UCLA is about to start doing right now. So that's just my opinion on that. We can go to Lincoln Riley. I'm just trying to help your fans out, Ryan.
Appreciate it, man. Like, people have been a little frustrated.
Patience. Let's be patient.
Riley's an interesting one too, because listen, over the offseason, Tackett Curtis, former USC linebacker, came over. And just it felt like the toughness on USC was never established. Like the defensively, culture in the locker room, whatever it is, it feels like they've addressed that. I mean, it feels like they have fully addressed that. It looks better. Is this the year, the era where Lincoln Riley says, "Yeah, I had to change. I had to adjust. I had to evolve. I can't just be a quarterback guy."
Right,
yeah, 100%. And they were not a tough team last year. Probably even both his first 2 years, even though they won 11 games his first year. And he said, "What was the quote again, Coach? Like after the UCLA
game,
UCLA lost, he said that was the best thing for me because it made me hungry or whatever. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, like sometimes you need to hit that rock bottom to realize, like, okay, I got to totally change what I'm doing." And you've heard we don't need to, and we've talked about it a ton. We don't need to go into it, but obviously the coaching hires he made on the defensive side were huge. The strength and conditioning regimen they changed in the offseason. I'm sure you've seen the number 1,400 pounds as a team gained since January. The style of practice. Now I can't be inside practices. We're there right before we watch warm-ups, then we leave and come back for interviews. But USC's media team is actually, they've really done like inside, a documentary, if you will. So there's some filming they do inside and you can just tell the intensity is much higher at practice because they played soft last year because I think they probably practiced soft. So there was absolutely a shift in ideology of what Lincoln Riley did. And, they didn't beat Michigan. They have a tough test, as we're talking about, with Wisconsin. Wisconsin always is going to be a tough battle team with the trenches. I mean, some of the greatest running backs in college football history hail from Wisconsin. So they gave up 290 to Michigan. I mean, it doesn't get easier against Wisconsin in the running game, which we'll get to. And so it's being tested now, but I think we've all seen, whether you're Cover SC, an SC fan, or just a Big Ten fan or Wisconsin fan, I think everyone can admit they are a tougher mentality team than they were last year. So long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, absolutely. He's changed his mentality, and I think it's happened a lot quicker than even we expected.
So we gave, I don't know, and we have this theory that Lincoln Riley watches our show. It's weird because every time we say something, it legit happens. Either we really know what we're talking about, or Lincoln Riley is taking advice from our show. I'm gonna go with the latter. I'm just gonna be a little, but it's like we had a bunch of checklists for Lincoln Riley, and it seems like media, he wasn't very great. He got very well in the media, learn how to say the right things. Check. He has to go fix his coaching staff. Check. He has to recruit the right players. Check. He has to create a culture. Check. He started checking all these boxes off. You know what I mean? And we're like, we saw it early spring. We're like, there's something brewing here. Like, he's checking all these, but like, there's something brewing here. We saw it with LSU. Like, and then like the thing with Michigan, we lost to Michigan, right? And from our perspective, that loss to Michigan is what we needed. But then again, it also shows the fans that, oh, there's growth there. That's why the SC fans are like, well, it was just 3 runs. A year ago, it would have been 14 runs, right? And so, like, we see the growth. We see how much better the team is. There's a difference on the sideline this year than it was last year, right? And, like, there's things that are more engaged. Like, there's no giving up. There's a lot of fight. There's stuff that we're seeing. Were they a little soft the past years? Yeah. I don't think they're soft this year. And I think there's a little edge to them now. So I think Lincoln Riley has a place to be. He has another 8 years. I think he's going to fulfill those 8 years. And I think he's making the right steps in the right direction. He replaced these coaches that he's going to lose in the years down the road with equal or greater, with coaches that are equal or better than the ones that he has now, to make this program be successful and be at the top of the conference and be at the top of college football.
I almost want to dive into this one matchup. I don't know if you guys want to go into some matchups.
Yeah,
we can. Yeah.
I think when Wisconsin's offense is on the field, USC's defense is on the field, a bunch of stuff I want to ask. We're not even going to be able to have enough time to get into it all. But Wisconsin is going to have to run the ball. Their passing game hasn't been great, and they're down Tyler Van Dyke. So they're on their backup quarterback. They're going to have to run the ball. This is a veteran, big Wisconsin offensive line group. They had some success at times against Bama. They had a 17-play drive. Are they going to be able to run the ball successfully against SC? What is SC schematically going to do? Are they going to play a 10 in the box, or schematically they're not going to do it? And do you think there's an effect of playing Michigan 1 week and then coming back and having to play another team that wants to run the ball 1 week after that with travel involved? I'm very curious if you guys think that's going to be an issue, and if Wisconsin's going to be able to run the ball. Because if they can't, USC doesn't. Or if Wisconsin can't run the ball, they don't have a chance to win this game.
So the thing about this game is, it didn't work out in Wisconsin's favor, and I'm gonna tell you why. There's a couple of points of why it didn't work out in Wisconsin's favor. This was supposed to be like a true trap game. This is supposed to be, we just came off a win from Michigan. Now we have to play Wisconsin at home. We're high. Do they know how to win? All these things that you need to worry about as a coach, like, you know, and everybody's worried. But it didn't work out that way, right? So there's 2 teams that could come out for SC. There could be a team that fix all their mistakes, because that run down at the goal line, Arnold, he just ran up the heels of the defensive lineman, which is fine. But if he goes and scrapes over and fills that hole, SC wins the game. Wide open hole, SC wins the game. There's another thing that I want to see. Can SC play through the hole? Apparently, according to Twitter/X, holding is a common thing in the Big Ten. I don't know. That's what they're all saying. We need to get used to that. They have to play through the hole.
I think that was my post. I think that's the post you saw and you disagreed with.
Oh, is that what it is? Like, holding is a common thing in the Big Ten.
Well, and USC fan said all this holding isn't getting called. I think I said, listen, that is the Big Ten. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
that's what everyone's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to play through the hole. It's the way the game is. They have to play through the hole. The issue with Wisconsin is that they're playing after SC just lost to a team that ran the ball, and they want to come and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the coaching staff, I think that they're able to fix it, and they won't be able to. They'll get plays. When you run the ball that much, a run's going to bust. Look at Army, Navy, all these triple option teams. You're going to bust one. Can you control the big runs, and can you get a big enough lead? Now, the thing that worries me is that SC's a 16-point favorite. I don't know where that came from, but I don't think it's that. Yeah, they're a 16-point favorite. I don't think it's that big. I really don't think it's that big. I think it's more maybe 10, maybe 8, 6 on a good day. But SC should be prepared to see this run, and they understand what they have to. I think this is a team that carries a chip on their shoulder, and they're willing to prove people wrong. So that's what we're going to see offensively and defensively. SC being able to stop the run and controlling the big runs at key points in time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Lincoln Riley actually said in his presser kind of just that a little bit, Ryan, is when we're facing these runs, there are going to be a few busted moments, but can we contain that bust moment to 10 yards and not 63 yards like what happened last week? And so if they can have those where it's like, okay, one does break, but it's 10, 15 yards and they buckle down and force a punt. But to more directly answer your question, we saw a lot last week, 8-9 man boxes and just playing man on the outside. I would expect a lot of the same. I haven't, me personally, you could answer more, which I'm going to ask you after. I haven't watched a lot of Brayden Locke tape, so I'm curious of what his pocket presence or what his passing ability is. I'm sure it's gonna be better than what Michigan put out last week, regardless. So that it'll be a bigger threat in that regard. But I would expect to see fairly big, 8-man boxes playing man on the outside. Dan Lynn's system, and Coach, you can speak this. They do really well switching up zone and man. I mean, his scheme is really tailor-made to his players and tailor-made to the teams they're playing. They've done different schematic looks for almost all 3 games. But depending if Michigan if Wisconsin comes out and wants to really establish the one early, I would expect to see those heavy boxes with just man on the outside.
And that's how I would defend Wisconsin. If I was a DC defending this offense, I would say we have athletes on the edges, which Wisconsin does not have elite athleticism at the receiver spot. I would say we're going to put 8 in the box, 9 in the box, prove you can throw it. For USC fans that might be curious, I'll give you the 30-second scouting report on the offensive weaponry. It's not extensive for Wisconsin. It just isn't. Certainly Brayden Locke provides a better, stronger throwing threat than Alex Orji did. Wisconsin will come out in 10 personnel. They'll come out with a couple receivers. They'll come out in 13. Right, so they'll spread you out a little bit more, which does make it a little harder to stack the box. Locke is not mobile. He's not going to threaten you on the edges. He's not an Alex Orji. Not a great arm either, and he's had some issues with pocket awareness. Like he's a number 2. Like a lot of teams don't have a good number 1. Almost no team has a number 2 they can plug in and not miss a beat. Wisconsin's running backs, there's not a game breaker there. It's a deeper stable. You're going to see a couple different guys, a couple veteran guys. So it's not an offense with game breakers, and it's not an offense with an elite quarterback. It is an offense that's going to threaten you more than Alex Orji through the air, which is might cause a few issues. You might get hit with a play action pass where you have 8 in the box. Those things happen as well. But yeah, I would just stop the run. I would say I dare you to throw on me if I was USC. That's how I would defend Wisconsin right now. And Wisconsin hasn't been able to make people pay, for a while against teams that do that. Yeah.
Well, you saw against Alabama. I mean, obviously the score looks a lot more lopsided, but Wisconsin rushed for 149 yards in that game, and with a backup quarterback, so they were still able to move and being down. So I mean, it's definitely a running threat. Who of that you can answer quickly, but of that stable, because I think there were 2 guys with 11 carries. It seemed pretty well balanced, but who is kind of the lead guy, or is there truly not? Is it truly like, hey, we got 2-3 backs that will just rotate in seemingly?
Yeah, you're going to see 3 guys. You're going to see Ches Malusi, who's the veteran. You're going to see Tyree Walker, who's a bigger power back. He was at Oklahoma last year. He runs really low, good center of gravity. And then you're going to see Cade Yakimelli, who has actually been the most explosive of the 3. He hits the holes pretty quickly. He's decisive, goes north-south. You're going to see those 3 for the most part. And I will point out, Wisconsin is 9th nationally in time of possession. They've strung a 17-play drive up against Bama. So they will try to control the clock. Mm-hmm. And that will be the game plan offensively. Defensively, Wisconsin has, I think, more. I feel better about Wisconsin's offense against USC's defense than Wisconsin's defense against USC's offense. If we want to switch it to that side.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. Perfect.
So what we saw Michigan do against USC's offensive line, and obviously your guys' perspective covering USC might be a little different, but nationally it looked like Michigan mauled.
Yeah.
Like Michigan has
that's our perspective too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michigan has an elite defensive line. Wisconsin is nowhere near that. Wisconsin isn't even near traditional Wisconsin standards. They've struggled getting pressure all year. And I think Wisconsin's in a really tough spot where they're not going to be able to get pressure with 4. But Miller Moss is really good against the blitz. He's a smart quarterback. He sees where it's coming from. He understands where to go with the ball. I just don't know what Wisconsin's going to do with Miller Moss. I think you got to make him uncomfortable, but they're going to play a lot of risky stuff if they try blitzing him. So I think the question for Wisconsin is, do they rush 4, play a little more cloud coverage, and just say, try to dink and dunk all the way down the field against us? Can you be that patient, Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley? Or do we blitz and say, we just hope we get to you? And it's a tough spot for Wisconsin fans. I think that's where Miller Moss is going to give Wisconsin a ton of issues this week.
So, and I think a lot of people, and this is starting to become my new Austin Jones, Ryan. I think a lot of people are underestimating how good Woody Marks really is in this Lincoln Riley offense. If you rush 4 and we're able to get the edge, Woody Marks is going to have a day, right? Mm-hmm. Like last week, he had a quiet 100 yards, and he averaged 7.7 yards a carry last week. Very quietly did it, but he did it. Like 7.7 yards, you're ahead of the sticks, right? By him getting the ball. You have to be able to bring one more. The thing about it is, and I say this all the time, I think Miller Moss is an elite quarterback, and you kill me if you want, but the reason why Miller Moss is so elite is because his pocket presence and his ball placement. I don't think there's very many quarterbacks who could do what he does as far as pocket presence and ball placement in college football, which is why they're projecting him to be like the second or third quarterback off the board right now, just off of what he's shown in the film. If they play back and dink and dunk, it's not going to be very conducive for Wisconsin's defense unless they get to the quarterback and they have to throw the ball right now. Because Lincoln Riley's a spread guy, he's going to take what you get. And if you're going to give him that, he's going to take it and he's going to move down the field on it. So that's what I'm expecting to see if that's what they're planning on doing.
So it's taken us 30 minutes to bring this up, but we obviously have to talk a little Alex Grinch, and you mentioned the defense. And we talking a little bit offline. I'll be curious because obviously he knows Lincoln Riley so well. Lincoln Riley knows him so well. So it's almost like it evens out. The difference too is, and Grinch was with him in Oklahoma, so different quarterbacks, but this is a very different offense than what it was the last 2 years with Caleb Williams. My question for you is, what have you seen from Grinch as a coach? I know he's the secondaries coach, co-DC, so it's not necessarily his system. He has the co-DC title, but he's not necessarily the one. It's his scheme. Maybe it is, but what have you seen? Has there been? Because I'll just tell you this, if you don't know the background, like the scheme at SC was not a great scheme, and tackling was woeful. And whether that was all on Grinch or his other coaches, that's a whole other podcast we could get into. So how is just the Wisconsin defense, I guess, a simple question, in their fundamentals, if you will?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So Grinch coaches safeties. That's his primary role. And he came into a safety room that's pretty veteran. Hunter Wohler, our safety, is one of the best players on the team. There's veterans in that group. The secondary as a whole is the strength of Wisconsin, which is certainly going to be tested with the playmakers USC throws out on the field. But he came into a group that's pretty veteran. I don't think we've really seen a lot, right? Like, again, coming from the DC to a positional coach, I don't think there's been a ton of changes. Wisconsin has tackled pretty well this year, better than last year, but I don't really attribute any of that to Grinch or not. I know Badger fans are hoping that Grinch maybe provides a bit of a value add this week. Obviously, knowing Lincoln Riley really well, having coached with them, I think there's something there. I also think those things get overplayed a little bit. We've seen 3 weeks of these are the route trees that Branch wants to run. Like it's more, can you cover it or not? And the answer with a guy like that is usually no, right? Mm-hmm. Like Lincoln Riley's a really good play caller and he's going to scheme it up. So I think it's a fun storyline. There's a couple of those. We talked about Tackett Curtis. You're going to see him actually play quite a bit. He's been earning more and more reps for USC fans that have followed his recruitment. CJ Williams came over last year as well, the receiver. He has struggled catching the ball. You will probably not see a lot of CJ Williams. But yeah, the Grinch thing I think is something to be talked about, but I don't think there's a ton there.
Yeah, and Coach, you can go next, but just specifically about Tackett Curtis, it seems like he's played pretty well for Wisconsin so far. I was really high on him, Ryan, when he recruited. He got the start as a freshman. Like there were even talks. I don't know if you know the history of SC, but it's like a history thing, like 5-5. Who gets the 55 as a linebacker? There's only a few through history. It's not anyone can get it. Basically, a former linebacker that wore 5-5, Junior Seau, you can go down the list, almost have to like accept it or like allow it. And there were talks like, could Tackett finally, it's been years, like could he be? I mean, he got the start as a freshman. And unfortunately throughout the year, he kind of, digressed a little bit. Like his tackling got a little bit worse. He was not in the right places sometimes. But I think there was still a lot of upside there. So just overall from him, what have you seen from him and kind of his role within the entire defense?
Yeah, man, Ryan, I'm right there with you. And not surprisingly, sharing the same first name, we have the same affinity for hard-hitting linebackers. His film out of Manny High School, that's some of the best and most enjoyable high school film you'll ever see. He just obliterates people. Wisconsin was right in that recruitment as well. Broke my heart when he went to SC. And then he came over to Wisconsin. He was hurt. Like he was hurt in spring, getting better over the summer. He was hurt a little bit last year. He's been starting to fill into that role, and Wisconsin's just kind of let him be that athlete a little bit more. He's noticeably been better than the starting group when he's been out there. And I think those reps are going to continue to go up because when he's at his best, that high school high 4-star version of him, he's a physical guy who can be, at least in the running game, really shut down a lot of angles. So we're seeing more on that. I'm very curious, again, just thinking with USC's offense against Wisconsin's defense. Wisconsin has had struggles stopping the run this year. Coach, you talked about the running game for USC. Will USC just lean on that? Or is Lincoln Riley, is he going to have to throw the ball? Because that is going to play more into the strength of Wisconsin's secondary.
He doesn't have to throw the ball if the running game is there. And then a lot of people don't understand, like, Lincoln Riley is setting up a lot of his pass off the run. But if power is there, if outside zone's there, he's going to run power in outside zone, i.e. Utah State. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to show that he can run the ball. And he wanted to show that he can run the ball against Michigan. And apparently he was able to. But it was quiet, but he was able to. Like, you go look at the numbers, and it's like, Woody, you played a very good game. You gave us 7 yards of carry. Like, so he's going to set up the pass off the run because the idea of his type of spread offense is we want to rock you to sleep and then hit you over the top. Right, so the play off the run is going to be a RPO, but it's going to be a shot down the field, 7 points, strike up the pan. Right, so that's what he wants to do. So he will. I guarantee you, if you're an underdog person, not underdog, but FanDuel or anything like that type person, if you are able to bet, because we can't do it here in California, if you are able to bet the first game, USC versus Wisconsin, USC's offensive play, it will be a run. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot. Like he does love the run a lot more than nationally talked about, but to the credit of the national perception of him, I mean, only ran the ball like 13 times last week against Michigan. And in the first half, it was doing nothing. So, I mean, they didn't really have an option. But that second half is when they made the tackle switch, things started opening up. And as Coach alluded to, I mean, Woody Marks, 13 carries, 100 yards, and busted a few in that third quarter. So I know he wants to, but there's moments when the game gets tight where he does seem to just lean so heavily in the pass. I mean, Miller Moss threw the ball 51 times.
51 times was crazy.
51 times, and he was getting pressured on, 27 of those 51. So we talked about it after. It was a little bit curious, like, okay, you're in the game. I get it. Early, you were down 14-3, and then you were down 20 to 14 or whatever. So you had to kind of pass your way back into it. But I would like to see them dedicate themselves to the run more, and I think they will. But if Wisconsin can get a lead early, or if they are beating up the trenches similar to Michigan did, then I wouldn't be surprised if Riley goes back to just very pass heavy. And his offense a lot, and Coach can talk about this too, but he views a lot of the short passes as an extension of the run game, as most coaches do. Screen passes, shovel passes, bubble screens, all things like that. To him, is just an extension of the run. It just happens to count as a pass in the stat sheet. So they had like 18 of those plays last week. So technically you could say those are 30 runs then if you combine the running plays and the screens and bubbles. So it just depends how you want to look at it. But I would expect for sure a heavy dose of that. Hopefully they utilize the right personnel groupings for those screens and not love our tight ends, but you're not going to run a quick bubble screen with a slow tight end. You need to be using Zachariah Branch or your running backs. So hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, you're going to see. Yeah, I think your point is dead on, Ryan. Like Wisconsin needs to keep it close early, and I kind of wonder if USC is going to want to come out and really quickly try to race into a lead to force Wisconsin out of the running game. Not just because that's what Wisconsin wants to do, but also because you're coming off a week where Michigan ran a lot of plays against that defense line. Now down Bear Alexander as well. I know he's not a starter, but that's another guy, rotational guy. By the way, we could use a defense lineman. You think he's interested? Madison, cold weather. We could use a guy. No, maybe.
I mean, who knows?
All I can say is what's the best way to say it? Just be careful if you do that.
Right.
I think that's the most politically correct way to say it. Just be careful if you do that.
Roger that. Yeah, I agree.
Let me ask you this question real quick, and I know you gotta get out here. I want to ask you that: how veteran is your offensive line, and how smart are they? Because the one thing I did notice about Coach Lynn is he disguises blitz very well. And he was giving Michigan some fits last week. Like, they think it's coming from one way. They get the line and slide, and the blitz comes from the opposite way. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And we're going to see a lot more fire zones and a lot more disguise coverage. Will the offensive line be able to pick that up for Wisconsin?
If they don't, I'd be surprised. This is a very veteran group. The offensive line is the strength of the offense. Both tackles are seniors. They're probably both going to play in the NFL. The center's a senior. He was over with Luke Fickell in Cincinnati, started against Bama in that game. He was the all-AAC guy. Joe Huber's a guard. He's a senior. Everybody's experienced on the offensive line, experienced and big. It really is the strength of the offense, which also isn't saying a lot. Like, it's not been a very good offense, but that's why they've leaned on the offensive line. They've had 3 or 4 drives this year, 17, 18 plays. And it's because they've just been methodically able to move defensive lines a little bit at a time. So I do think they'll hold up pretty well there. I think where Wisconsin's going to get into issues for SC fans that might be curious, that first down run goes 1 yard. It's 2nd and 9. Wisconsin's receivers have had a hell of a time creating separation. They just get swallowed up. Now you have a backup quarterback, receivers struggling to create separation. I think that's where you could see some coverage sacks, right? Where they're just not getting that open shot, and then USC's pass rush gets home. I think that's where Wisconsin gets into a ton of trouble offensively.
I got you.
Yeah. Well, we love Wisconsin offensive linemen, and we've got the Los Angeles Badgers that play at SoFi with Logan Bruss finally getting his first start, Rob Havenstein, Badger legend. So,
dude, I love
Wisconsin always produces good linemen. So, well, bro, let's end with this. I guess I feel like we got to do score predictions, right? Like who we take it? I mean, is the line really? What do you say, Coach? 16? Is that really what it is?
16 and a half. Last time I looked.
Oh man,
I don't know if it's moved. I'll check right now to see if it moved. But
yeah, I saw it at 15.5, so it's not far off from where you were at. It's maybe moved just a tick. I mean, I went on my show, and I think USC wins. I've called this a USC win since before the season. And I think, quite frankly, USC has looked a little better than I thought they would, and Wisconsin's looked a little worse. So nothing has changed from that perspective. I know some people think this is a letdown moment for USC. I think that's ridiculous. I think you're not going to have a letdown moment in the first Big Ten home opener with a sold-out crowd after you just got ran over a little bit by Michigan. Like, they're going to come out fired up. I think it's going to be like 30-20, like a 10-point win. USC. Wisconsin will control the clock at times, which is going to keep that offense, Miller Moss on the sideline. I just think Miller Moss is really good. I think the USC weapons are NFL receivers, and I think they have athletes on defense. So I have about a 30-20 game, which is a good game. It'd be another good game. I just don't think Wisconsin has the horses offensively.
Yeah, like that. Coach, what you got?
So, if you haven't noticed, Lincoln Riley has yet to put up 40 points. He has even yet to break the 30 mark. I don't think the game's going to be that high scoring. I think he leans on his defense a little bit too much, and this is a learning curve for Lincoln Riley because he has a good defense now, and he's leaning on them very heavily. I think the score will be about 24-10, and I think the 10 will come late on a touchdown, like in the fourth quarter, and when the game's almost over.
That's not pretty at all. Coach, that's not pretty at all.
I'm just being, all right. It'll be 31-30 SC wins last minute. There you go.
Oh man, can't take the heartbreak there. Yeah, I think this will be a good game early as well. I don't want to, especially when we have guests on. I hate sounding like calling a blowout or anything like that. But everything you say, I think Coach made a good point earlier that had SC pulled off the win, I think this game would be a not even necessarily a letdown, but would be just closer because all those emotions. Mm-hmm. I just think the way they lost the way this team has come together in the offseason, I think they really put together a really solid game plan. I think it's close early, and Wisconsin keeps it close. I think they control the clock, like you said. SC the offense has not started good, even against Utah State. Took them a while to get going, and they have yet to have that like really quick start. I think it takes them a while, but I do think they pull away late in the fourth quarter once things start humming. I think we finally see a USC receiver have like a breakout game. I know Zach Branch had 6 for 98 last week, but I think we finally see one get like over 100 maybe. So I'm going to go 31-14 SC.
Well, they did break the 40. They broke the 40 against Utah State. I don't even count that game, but they did break the 40 there. You're right.
Yeah, 48-0, right?
It could definitely happen. You play on the road. USC's got weapons. Again, ultimately, a lot of times it just comes down to who has the better quarterback, and that's obviously Miller Moss. It would have been Miller Moss if Tyler Van Dyke was still healthy, and that matters. But in football, quarterback matters. Unfortunately for Wisconsin fans at times.
Ryan, let me ask you this question. I see a Navy flag back there. Did you serve?
Yes, sir. 9 years, submarines.
Yeah, thank you for your service. I have to always say thank you for your service. I come from a military family. I never served myself, but I respect you guys. And my father-in-law is actually, he's been in the Navy too. He was, I'm a mess. He loaded the planes on the carrier with the weapons. Nice. He did. Nice. He loaded the helicopters and all the fighter jets on the carrier with the weapons. So he's actually worked on the one that's retired in downtown San Diego. He was on that one.
Oh, that's awesome. Good man. Yeah, the Navy was great for me.
That's awesome.
Yep. Good deal. So thank you for your service, man. I appreciate you for coming on.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully this is the first of many sync-ups, hopefully, between us.
Yeah,
absolutely. Deal. Yes, thank you. And I know your fans know, but let our fans know where they can find you and all your work.
Yes, absolutely. Locked On Badgers, go check it out. And if you're Badgers fans, obviously these two guys up here, go check them out for all the USC coverage, especially if we win, we pull the upset. Please go check out their shows. See the post game, see them recant everything. But yeah, definitely go check them out as well for all the USC coverage leading up to the game and after the game.
Love it. Well, good. Well, hey, man, have a blast. Wish you were out here in LA this weekend, but we'll certainly try to link up and be well, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Appreciate you guys.